What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to have another episode in the Houston Texans rebuild on Next Gen Madden 21. And today we're going to be doing the offseason. I want to bring you guys in for the first time ever on the channel, actually coming through with me as we progress through offseason and some of my decision-making points. Now, the first thing that I want to get into before we start today's video in terms of the offseason is I want to do a bit of a stats review for the end of the season, because we talked a little bit about awards and things like that in the last episode, but we never actually took a look at the hard stats for the players. So with all that being said, I honestly can't remember. I looked back at the last video, but we may have done a stats review, we may not have, but here are the final and definitive stats for the end of the season for our Houston Texans rebuild. So Nick Biggs had a really nice season as a rookie, especially considering his overall. Now he's up to a 73 overall, which is fantastic, but he had 3,800 yards, 31 touchdowns, and 15 interceptions. I'm not going to lie, those are almost veteran numbers right there. Completion percentage was a little bit low for him. He was only sacked 23 times, which is actually not too bad, all things considered. Just over one sack per game, and he really played pretty well for us. And then on top of that, he added a little bit in terms of the rushing game, 158 yards and a touchdown. He wasn't all that effective on the ground, but as he develops, he's gonna become more effective in determining when to use his legs and when to throw the football. So I really like what we saw out of him this season. And then Kerry Crisp had 813 yards and 9 touchdowns for us in all of his games played, which is fantastic. 4.6 yards per carry, 0 fumbles in all of his 176 attempts. Unfortunately, Abdul Curley, as we had mentioned in the previous video, walked to free agency because he was an undrafted free agent. We may try to bring him back. He had somewhere in that 600-yard range, something like that. He did pretty well for us. And then it's also worth noting that Kerry Crisp added 231 through the air and a receiving touchdown. Now, in terms of the wide receivers, I think it's important to note that Lee Arrington really burst onto the scene, and you guys didn't get to see a whole lot of highlights of him. We highlighted him here and there. We really kind of highlighted Jack Hayes a lot, and he did really well himself. But let's look at Lee Arrington for a second. He had 72 catches for 947 yards and 9 touchdowns, which is insane. For a rookie wide receiver that was only a 70 overall, well, really at that point in time, mid to high 60s overall. Now he's up to a 70 overall with Star. And then Albert O as well from that tight end position looked like a top tight end in the league with 853 yards and 9 touchdowns. That's not a surprise for a young quarterback to be leaning on his athletic receiving tight end. That's a big pick. That's a huge advancement for us, and hopefully he will continue to develop into a long-term threat for us. And then Jack Hayes, as we had mentioned, 752 yards on 60 catches and 4 touchdowns. Now we would like to see a bigger uptick in touchdown production from him in the future, because he is 6'5", 223. He's that big receiving threat. So we're looking for some of those touchdowns maybe to shift his way. But that's what we had in the receiving game this year. Now in the blocking game this year, we actually had some interesting stats. So basically, I would say for the most part, our offensive line played pretty well as a whole. Really, the only weak spot were the young guys. Greg Kennedy, he allowed 6 sacks. Laramie Tunsil was pretty much always going up against top pass rushers. So 5 sacks attributed to him really isn't that bad. Charlie Heck played 55 snaps, a couple snaps each game, not much to mention there. But right tackle Drew Ford, this is the guy that was a mid-60s overall, played 13 games, 579 snaps, pretty much all at right tackle in replacement of Titus Howard, and he played really well. Didn't allow a single sack the entire season. Titus Howard, 8 games played, 495 downs played, 4 sacks allowed. So, kind of a split there in the reps. As you guys can see, about 1,000 reps for everybody else, but then a split between these two at right tackle. And Drew Ford might be the guy. That came as a surprise to me when I was actually reviewing the stats, because we did do some simulating and stuff through this season. I didn't get a good look at it, but man, even in the games that we played, he didn't allow a sack, and that's fantastic for a young guy like that. And I think he's still only a 66 overall and 23 years old, so a lot of room to grow there. We'll see what happens, but that's blocking wise, and then we'll get on to the defense here. And from the defensive side of the ball, Bernardrick McKinney, not really much of a surprise there, led the team in tackles, but what I will say is Justin Reid almost beat him out for the tackle lead at 109 tackles, which is huge. 6 tackles for loss, 2 sacks for him, 4 sacks for McKinney, which is nice. We got to see that blitzing in action. Then Justin Reid had an interception there. But, other important notes here, Keon Crossan and Dalvin Turk both played really well in terms of getting a lot of tackles. Really, you don't want to see your secondary leading you in tackles like this with Reid, Crossan, and Turk. And, as well as other cornerbacks being up there, we really didn't have another linebacker that did too well in terms of tackles, per se. So that's kind of a hole that we obviously need to fill. That just kind of shows that our set, we were letting up a lot of passes, and so these guys had to make a lot of tackles. But Rick Carr played really well, the D tackle that is now up to X Factor. He's looking to be an absolute stud for us for the future. 18 tackles for loss, 8 sacks in a rookie season. That's huge. And then the outside linebacker, JoJo Stanton, 10 tackles for loss, 7 sacks. Now, he didn't get a dev upgrade, but he is looking pretty good. 74 overall, very athletic and things like that. And then in terms of sacks, we actually had a couple of other players to note. Jalen Haskins, the left end out of Miami, had 7 sacks. Jeff Eppard added 5. He's more of a run stopper, but I'll take 5 from a guy like that. Frank Rucker added 3. We're going to be looking to improve his playing time this season. He did well as a run stopper, 8 tackles for loss, but 3 sacks. We'd like to improve upon that a little bit. And then we had a handful of sacks from guys like Patrick Pierce, who played outside linebacker opposite of Stanton. And then on top of that, Cunningham at middle linebacker had a sack. Ross Blacklock had a sack, and then a half sack for Bradley Roby. Interception-wise, Dalvin Turk burst onto the scene for us. This guy had 5 interceptions, which is huge. Keon Crossan had 2, Justin Reid with 1, Roby with 1, and then LaMichael Scandrick with 1, who is also a young player. And, for the amount of playing time he got to have an interception, kind of impressive. So that's what we got on the defensive side of the ball. Pass deflection wise, not a lot to really talk about. Not a lot to talk about in terms of forced fumbles, just a couple here and there. And then I don't even know if we had any defensive touchdowns. We didn't. No defensive touchdowns, no safeties. So we are looking to still improve the defensive side of the ball and add players to the defensive side of the ball, because that's where we're obviously lacking some playmakers and stuff like that. But we do have a few key pieces that we identified here that are looking to, maybe take on a more substantial role as we go forward, especially with talent being built around them. And then at the kicker position, very solid for Kami Fairbairn. I'm probably saying that name wrong, 14 of 14 on his kicks. Let me know in the comment section how I properly pronounce that. And then Brian Anger did pretty well as well. So I don't think we're going to experience much of a change in terms of the special teams, but we'll get into some of the changes we're considering making once we actually get into looking at the free agents here. And that's pretty much all we had in terms of the stats review. So let's go ahead and jump into free agency and talk about some of our team needs, assess what we're going to do with the players that we have, and all that type of fun off-season stuff. So the first thing that I want to do a quick run through the entire roster. And so we're going to, look position by position. So Nick Biggs, obviously our long-term starter, but we're going to be looking to add a backup or 2 at some point through the offseason. So keep that, up on your boards. We're going to be looking to add halfbacks because, we had all those guys walk, and Kerry Crisp, again, much like Biggs, the long-term solution at halfback, but, we're waiting, we're waiting to fill out the room, and that could be through free agency or the draft. Fullback, not necessary. Wide receiver, maybe we could add a receiver, but I'm not really hard set on it. I do want to potentially look at adding or bringing back maybe Braxton Berrios as that slot receiver, because I really liked what he provided for us, but I'm not hard set on adding a receiver because I really like what we have in Arrington and Hayes. So that's up in the air. At tight end, I would like to add a second tight end to go with Albert O. I don't really like what we have in Waring and Kavanaugh, so definitely on the lookout for a tight end to add to the squad. On the offensive line of things, not really looking to add anything. I am very comfortable with Tunsil at left tackle, Kennedy at left guard, Ferguson at center, Muti at right guard, and then the combination of Howard and Ford at right tackle. There is the potential there that we could maybe add like a backup or something, but not really looking at the offensive line much at all unless somebody really good falls into our laps. We also will not be looking to add anything to the defensive line. We're really deep at the defensive line since we invested so heavily in the defensive line last year. So that's where we stand with that. We will be looking to add to the linebackers, not necessarily outside linebacker, because I like JoJo Stanton. He looks good. Tavares Blackburn, when he gets his opportunities, is pretty solid. And then at the other position, Patrick Pierce has some room to grow and a really nice athlete. So, maybe some depth at the outside linebacker spot, but not really looking to add anything there. Maybe a pass rusher to compete with Patrick Pierce, but, we'll see. The middle linebacker position is a position we're looking to address. And there's a couple of things that could happen here. We're really looking to potentially trade away Bernardrick McKinney, Zach Cunningham, Shaq Moore will probably be sticking around, and Curtis Bolton might get cut. We'll see what happens here, but this middle linebacker position is going to be in flux as we go through the offseason here. And then we get to the defensive backs. Bradley Roby, great candidate for us to trade away. More than likely going to be traded away this offseason. Good veteran presence, but we do need to revamp the secondary. That's got to be a huge priority for us this year, as we've already addressed. And so Bradley Roby probably going to be on his way out. Keon Crossan we brought back on a couple-year deal, and so I'm comfortable with Keon Crossan and Javelin Guidry, as well as John Reid as kind of rotational type players. But we are going to be looking to add competitors here through the draft and probably through free agency to maybe take over at these positions. And then at free safety, this is locked down. I see no reason to make a change here. Justin Reid will be playing free safety. Geno Stone, because of his little bit lower speed and stuff like that, might move over to strong safety. And then strong safety Dalvin Turk absolutely locked up this position this year. And LaMichael Scandrick, I have no complaints with. I think really the only thing that might happen here is LaMichael Scandrick and Geno Stone might flip positions. And then I did want to talk a little bit about special teams. I think Fairbairn is going to stick around as the kicker, but Brian Anger kind of regressed this season. He went down to a 71. He's 33 years old now. He's kind of costing us a bit of money. I'm not really concerned about the money side of things necessarily, but it might make sense for us to part ways with him and bring in a different punter. So that will be on the table for us once we start looking at free agents. And here I did want to oh man. And here I did want to bring you guys in for the official trade for Bradley Roby. We ended up trading away Bradley Roby to the 49ers for a 5th-round pick. Now, we probably could have gotten more from him from a Madden standpoint, but I felt that was kind of a fair and realistic trade value for him. At the age of 30, he does add to that 49ers secondary quite a bit if we take a look here, because that secondary was pretty weak. He actually slots in as the number 1 corner currently, and he should serve, decently well to that secondary. They do have a lot of young guys that could potentially compete for a position, but, they were struggling. They didn't really have a lot on the roster, so we went ahead and dealt him for a 5th. I'm happy to get a 5th back for him because we were looking to start other players this year anyway, so that's our first big trade of the offseason. And the next big trade of our offseason falls with Zach Cunningham going to the Rams for their 3rd-round pick. Now, the Rams are in pretty desperate need of linebackers, and at 27 years old, we felt that he would be kind of the best trade partner because, he would have a couple of years to play with that team. He's under control and everything like that, and they were the team that literally just did not have linebackers on the roster, so that's kind of an upgrade for them. We aren't taking a huge return for him, and we weren't trading away our old guy. Really, there aren't too many teams right now that are interested in Bernardrick McKinney. We're going to go ahead and put him up on the trade block and just see if anybody offers us anything for him, but we may end up just sticking with him for the offseason. Those were really our only trades that we were looking to make at this point, but we'll see what else happens as we move forward. We are going to go ahead and cut Brian Anger as one of our early moves, as long as we do get this contract with Jamie Gillen. I think special teams is a a part of our game that we like to focus on a lot. Me specifically, I like to make sure that part of our team is locked up, and adding Jamie Gillen is going to be huge for this franchise, especially with Brian Anger getting up there in age. And with that being said, let's go ahead and take a look at the rest of the free agents in this class. There are quite a few good ones up here at the top, but not necessarily guys that we're going to add to the team. So the first thing that stands out to me that I am considering making an offer on is Jair Alexander, who would be an absolute cornerstone for this defense. I just don't know how realistic it would be for him to come to the team. We can obviously offer him a lot of money. There are some other cornerback options out here, but they're all pretty much aging, and I'm not a huge fan of what there is out here to offer. Maybe Sidney Jones could be an option, but outside of that, I'm really not seeing too much I like, and really thinking that this is a position that we're going to want to address during the draft more than anything. Did want to add a edge rusher or outside linebacker rusher, I would certainly consider adding a Von Miller or a Chandler Jones, but with them getting up there in age, it really just doesn't make sense for them to come to a team like us. All right, now in terms of free agents that we are making offers to, we're going to start here with Marcus Mariota. We're going to give him a potential 2-year deal. Now he may or may not sign. We'll review after we've made all these offers and advanced, but Marcus Mariota, I think, kind of fits what Nick Biggs is. This will be more of a veteran presence that fits similarly to what we do on offense, and so Marcus Mariota potentially a pretty good pickup there. At halfback, we're kind of leaning towards 2 running backs right now. Todd Gurley as somebody that we can offer a 1 or 2 year deal to as kind of a prove it deal to hang around in the league as more of a bull-nosed type of runner, somebody that's going to be able to get in between the tackles and get the job done. And same thing with Dante Foreman. He's very much a hard-nosed runner. He's going to be able to get in between the tackles and just get the hard yardage that we want. He's from Texas, so I think that there's some interest there, some mutual interest between the teams. Dante Foreman was a part of the Texans before. He's somebody that I would like to see maybe stick with the organization and at least have a shot again to get maybe get his career going, but we'll see what happens with him. Then from the wide receiver position, right now it's a competition between James Washington and Braxton Berrios. We may end up not even offering a contract to either of these guys, but they are both on our radar as, kind of tough guys that, can do what we want them to do, play some hard-nosed football and get the ball in the slot. And, James Washington can play on the outside a little bit. Definitely guys that we're taking a look at. And then from the defensive perspective, we are pretty much not really looking at anybody. We are looking at Holton Hill, who did play with Texas, so a guy that would have some interest in coming back to Texas. And then we are taking a look, as I said, at punter Jamie Gillen. We decided to pass on Jair Alexander. I don't feel that the team is at a point where it would draw enough interest for a guy like him. We did some research about where he's from and whatnot. He's more from the East Coast. He's from like Carolina area, and so I was hoping maybe he was from down further south, maybe like Texas area or one of the neighboring states, and that would draw some interest for him to come back this way. But that's not where he's from, so he's not going to come down this way, I don't think, and I don't think it's really going to be beneficial for him to join the team. So that's what we got in terms of negotiations. Not a lot, and I think that realistically speaking, we're going to be able to add and adjust and address a lot of our needs through the draft whenever we arrive to it here in a couple weeks. And from a free agency recap perspective, it's very interesting that some of the top free agents didn't get signed. So I don't know what's going on there. I think that it's maybe a money thing, but Jair Alexander is still going to be there come post-draft free agency. So we've been thinking about him a lot. If for whatever reason he is available there still, and we don't address the cornerback position to our liking during the draft, that is absolutely an option. And we'll give him a legit contract. We won't just sign him to like some regular old free agency deal that Madden will give him. We'll give him a legit contract and pay him a lot of money to come here. But a couple of other free agents didn't sign as well. And Tom Brady probably going to retire because he didn't sign with anybody. In terms of the top signings, Trent Williams signed with the Broncos, which is a good pickup. Mitchell Schwartz goes to the Washington football team. Aaron Jones becomes a Patriot. I know Patriot fans would be excited to see that probably. Von Miller goes to the Jaguars, Jason Kelce goes to the Cardinals, and Chandler Jones goes over to the Panthers. Some interesting ones there. Somehow Baker Mayfield ends up here on the Giants. I might have to fix that, but some interesting free agent pickups there for the CPU teams. All right, guys, and we do have pick number 8 here. So a lot of interesting prospects on the board for us. I'm going to take you through basically the live process for me. We're going to be looking at cornerback. There are some guys here that I like quite a bit, and there are some guys here that are considered early first-round talents. Mid-first rounder for Channing Robinson, early first round for Keith McDougald. So certainly a guy that's on our board there. We also have Matthias Simmons. He'll be a mid-first round talent. Free safety, we could add a safety and potentially play them at the, either like sub linebacker or cornerback type players. And then linebacker is a position where we're really looking. Middle linebacker is pretty weak this year, but we do have some early first round talents at outside linebacker. Mid first round for Connor Evans, mid first round for Derek Barry, and we may have to pause the draft here in a moment. Tight end wise, I know that there's no first round talents, but some guys that we're definitely going to be looking at later. There are some wide receiver talents and some really nice halfback talents. So I think right now, realistically speaking, based on what we've looked at, I'm making a decision here between potential linebacker and potential cornerback. Let's go ahead and take a look at the offers that people are giving us and see if there isn't one that intrigues us. And you know what? I just realized we have 2 first-round picks here in pretty close succession, so I see no reason why we can't add 2 players. No need to trade back. This is actually a first-round pick that we received in the Deshaun Watson trade, so that's going to help us out tremendously. So we're just going to go ahead and pick the top player on the board. And to be honest with you, I think we're going to go linebacker and cornerback, unless this linebacker doesn't turn out to look as good as we thought he might. But I really think Connor Evans here looks pretty good. Although he's a 4.75 40 time, he's more of a power move type of player, whereas Desmond Priestley is more of a run stopper. He is the early first round talent, not much better on the 40 time. 22 years old, and let's compare that to Connor Evans, who's 23 years old, 6'4" versus 6'2". I think that the choice isn't all that clear. I could go either way on it, because what I'm seeing here is there is probably some reason that Madden has Connor Evans listed this far above Priestley, but that's not guaranteed necessarily. I kind of like the idea of a power rusher. He kind of fits the scheme. So I think I'm going to go with Connor Evans, and hopefully he doesn't disappoint. So 75 overall, normal development. They're going to say that we reached 81 speed, 87 acceleration, pretty good finesse moves and power moves. He actually looks like a pretty good pass rusher off the edge, so that could help us out quite a bit. So let's go ahead and advance to our next user pick and see what we can select. And there goes Desmond Priestley, 76 overall, so not that much better. But might have been the better route to go with that pick. Now let's go ahead, and I think that I was actually considering going linebacker because we need both positions. But now that he's off the board, I think that it's definitely going to be a cornerback pick here for us. And it's looking like Keith McDougald is the right pick. Early first rounder, first in 40 times, 6'3". He's big. He fits the mold that we're trying to go for at corner. So let's go ahead. We're not going to make any doubts about it. Keith McDougald, 78 overall, hidden development, great pick there. 94 speed, 95 acceleration, pretty good man and zone coverage to boot. I'll take that all day long. That's a fantastic pick, and I like our 2 first-round picks so far. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section. Now with pick 8 in round 2, we have a couple of interesting options here. I could potentially like the idea of going halfback. I potentially like the idea of going tight end. There are some other players that we have scouted. I'm not opposed to adding maybe an offensive lineman at some point. It says he's an early first round talent. That's hard to pass up on. That's one of the top players on our board, even though we said we might not address offensive line. There's not a lot left there in terms of linebacker. Derek Barry is there as a run stopper, a mid-first round player. He's got really good pursuit, really good block shedding, but my only concern here is he probably wouldn't be able to play middle linebacker the way I want him to. He's pretty slow with the 30th, 40 time as a 4.85 player. So that one worries me a bit. The other thing I could do is I could go cornerback again. Mid-first round talent here with Matthias Simmons, 6 foot, 203 pounds, 22 years old, Michigan State cornerback, ran a 4.39. Looks like a pretty solid player, though there is so much depth at cornerback that I'm not dying to draft one right now since we just added a really nice one to our roster. I'm going to go look at the halfbacks again just to see what was there in terms of whether that halfback was like an early first round talent that we have scouted. He's mid-first rounder, power back out of Miami. We did add some running backs, and his 40 time's a little slow. Everything is telling me I just need to make the best overall pick at this point in the draft. And I think that that's telling me we need to go with Dalton Spiegel out of Michigan. Early first round grade. Hopefully this guy's good. And that's a pretty solid pickup. He might even start for us. That's a good player. 90 strength, really good blocking stats all around. Fantastic. He's athletic. 76 overall. I'll take that in the second round. And we have another pick coming up here in just a couple picks. So, we might get one of those players we were looking at anyway. And here we have it, guys. I think we have our pick with our next second round pick, Peter Whalen, 6'6", 21 years old, 246 pounds, out of Texas A&M. Early second round talent at tight end. Really good hands. I think that this guy is athletic as well. So this is going to be a good duo to put at tight end. Yeah, and he's pretty balanced looking. Not the fastest or anything like that, but pretty good hands, decent blocking stats to start out with. I think that that's a solid pickup to pair with Albert O there at tight end, and I like that one quite a bit. And I do think with this pick here in the second round, the pick is going to be Kendrick McMahon, Miami corner here, 6'3", 208, so he fits the body type that we're looking for at corner. His 40 time ain't too bad at 4.45. He doesn't have the best intangible skills, but we can build that up as long as his physicals are good. 69 overall, so they're going to say it's a good pick. And I like the athleticism there. 92 speed, 93 acceleration, not very good coverage ability, but as a 69, I think that he'll be able to plug into the lineup, and we might be able to utilize him early on. We'll see. He'll be competing for a position at least with what we already have there. Now here in the late third round, I think that, to be honest with you guys, we have just an opportunity to go best available. Right now I'm sitting between Ron Beckham, this safety that might be able to help us out as almost a linebacker type player. He is 6 foot. He's a little light to maybe play linebacker, but he's got really good hit power and really good tackling. And then the halfback that we wanted was off the board, but Sammy Sarah, the center, 22-year-old pass protector out of LSU, looks like he could be pretty good, is sitting here on the board as an early second rounder. I think I'm going to go with the safety because he does have that potential to help us at linebacker, but if Sammy Sarah is there with our next pick, I think that might be a spot where we're looking to potentially help ourselves out with best available. Unfortunately, that offensive lineman is no longer there, but we do have quite a few players to pick from at potentially outside linebacker as well as cornerback still. And I think that the pick here for me is pretty clear because we do still want to add a linebacker. It's going to be Gabriel Chambers. He looks pretty athletic, decent size, decent finesse moves, so this is a guy that could potentially help us out. 72 overall, I'll take in the fourth round, and I'm not going to complain about that at all. Let's see what happens with our next pick. And I'm going to be honest with you guys, I like the potential addition here of a second round talent in tight end, LaRon Harrison, 6'5", 275. We have been talking about adding tight end. He's going to be a 69 overall, but he has some potential there to develop for us. And to be honest with you, in the fifth round, that's a pretty solid pick in terms of overall. So, not going to complain too much about what we have at this point. And then with the next pick, if he's there, I think I'm taking Chris Porter, this outside linebacker. We're going linebacker heavy here. But I'm going to probably look at the linebackers that we have scouted and see maybe who has the better 40 time or the better combine might be something that really kind of has a distinguishing point for us. So 4.75, 4.80, 4.79, and 4.78. So not much to distinguish these guys. Chris Porter, just the best overall talent. So 68 overall, we'll add him. And I'm not sure what's going on there. That looks like a different player than what we drafted, but that's okay. Nice draft pick. I think that we're doing a good job of selecting, just best available talent to help fill in some of the gaps here late. And this might be our last pick. Yeah, we have no picks remaining after this. So with the 7th round pick 8 in the 7th round, let's go ahead and just see what the best guy is that we have scouted, and we'll probably go ahead and draft that player. And with our final pick in the draft, we just take a chance on Chad Meredith, middle linebacker. He's out of Boise State. Probably not going to make the team. We'll see what happens. He's decent athletically and things like that. But we're still searching for answers at the linebacker position. We'll have to see how we can shift people around to take advantage of their talents. But that's the draft for us. Let's go ahead and skip ahead to the end, and we'll get a good viewpoint of what we took overall between all of these players. So draft recap here, you guys can see everything that we picked up. So we picked up outside linebacker Connor Evans in the first round with pick 8. With pick 11, we got Keith McDougald, the cornerback. He's looking phenomenal. Dalton Spiegel, the center, 76. Looks like he can come in and play an offensive line position and start for us. Peter Whalen, the tight end. Cornerback Kendrick McMahon. Free safety Ron Beckham, potentially a linebacker help there. Right outside linebacker Gabriel Chambers, a guy that could potentially transition to middle linebacker. Tight end LaRon Harrison. Right outside linebacker Chris Porter, another guy that could hopefully be versatile for us. And then middle linebacker Chad Meredith. You guys can tell we went linebacker heavy here and defensive heavy for the most part. I think that's a pretty good draft for us. We didn't get any of the best players in the world, but we did get Keith McDougald, who has the potential to be an elite player. Let's go ahead and click edit and see what his development trade is. We'll get a nice early look here. And he has star and undisciplined, unfortunately, but that's pretty solid. I'll take at least 1 star there. Unfortunately, we didn't get too many hidden devs or anything like that, but it's going to be tough for us, in order to get this team moving on up. We're going to have to build them up, and they made some good they had a good presence last year. We'll see what happens whenever we go ahead and advance this year. I'll go ahead and get the team taken care of and then bring you guys back in probably during preseason whenever we have our next opportunity to take a look at what I've done with the team in the off season here. And we'll do that in this video, and I'll take a look if there's guys like Jair Alexander or whatever out there that we might want to bring into the team. So we'll see. And unfortunately, guys, cornerback Jair Alexander did get pulled away from us by the Cardinals. We're going to have to go ahead and give some of these guys realistic contracts like Alexander, for example. But a lot of these guys got signed away by other teams before we had an opportunity to take them. So we're going to go ahead and take the opportunity to, fix up our team, bring in some undrafted free agents and whatnot, move some positions around. And you guys will get a good look at that in the next video. So make sure you stay tuned for that. Next episode will be the reveal of our team for this season, which is our transition season into our temporary stadium, and then hopefully this team will work its way up to competition, and by the time we are competitive, we'll be back to Houston as the Oilers, and I can't wait for that. Hopefully you guys enjoyed, and hopefully you guys are hopeful and enjoying this series. If you guys do want to see more of this series, as always, make sure you hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, hit that bell notification button, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Hope you guys have a good one.